It's been a minute. I made a video after Celtics Pacers game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, recapping the second round, and then it got to like Friday and I hadn't edited it, and then I updated it, and then I updated it again on Saturday, and then I was trying to upload this video and export it from Adobe Premiere Pro, and it didn't work. I'll throw something up here just showing you what the error message was, so if any of you actually know how to fix that for the future, let me know. I tried multiple times. I've restarted my computer. I tweaked settings that the Adobe help section said to do. I did everything to try and make this work. There's a lot that happened. I'm probably not going to spend too much time on the second round of the playoffs, but I will recap it real quick here. There were obviously 4 series that were happening. That was Celtics-Cavs. Celtics won in 5. Donovan Mitchell was hurt for the final 2 games of the series, but Celtics were up 2-1 when he missed game 4, and then he missed game 5 too. Celtics win in Boston, whatever. Another series that happened in the East was Knicks-Pacers. The Pacers ended up taking that home in 7. Series really shouldn't have even been possible to win for Indiana. The Knicks were about to go up 3-0. Andrew Nembhard hits that crazy step-back 3, and then Jalen Brunson does some stupid stuff with 16 seconds left. He tries to flop and get 3 free throws. They don't call it. They blow that game. So then the Pacers are down 2-1. They end up tying the series. They win both home games. And then the Knicks go up 3-2. OG Anunoby obviously got hurt. The Knicks were super battered, and it was obviously the Pacers series to win from there. But they still had to go and win 2 games in a row, down 3-2. They did. They ended up kind of blowing the Pacers out in Game 7. Pacers win that series. So Celtics-Pacers is the Eastern Conference matchup, which I will break down in a second. The 2 series in the West that went on were Mavs-Thunder. Mavs 1 in 6. I actually did predict that. If you watched my video, I'm pretty sure I put my second round predictions in the last video. So if you saw that, cool. If you didn't see it, it's on my Twitter. So check out my Twitter. I post there a good amount of the time. It's fun. Check it out. And then this other series that happened was Minnesota versus Denver. Minnesota ends up winning in 7. And that series is worth talking a little bit extra about because, one, Anthony Edwards had some very good performances and some not so great performances. They ended up winning the first 2 games in Denver, and then they lost the next 3. So then they were down 3-2, and then on the road, they won in Game 7. They won in Game 7, and they were down 20 at one point, and Michael Malone did not like to be asked that question. And I understand what he's saying because, yeah, it does suck. But at the end of the day, you're the one who blew a 20-point lead in Game 7 on your home floor. So obviously that stings a little bit more than just losing a random playoff game. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, it's the season's over. It doesn't matter. It kind of matters. To lose in that fashion is incredibly embarrassing. Anthony Edwards did not have a crazier performance in Game 7. He was 6 of 24 shooting. In general, the Wolves' success has been the other people like Jaden McDaniels or Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid. They have a lot of talented players on that team. Even Nickeil Alexander-Walker had a huge first round. So then we get to the conference finals, and we got Celtics-Pacers, Game 1. That was a crazy game. Absolutely insane. Like I said, I wish I could have had my live reaction, but obviously the file corrupted, which sucks. But at the end of the day, it was pretty simple. The Celtics were down 3. They didn't have the ball. Jalen forces a turnover and then sticks a 3 in the corner over Pascal Siakam to send the game to overtime. Jason Tatum did not have a great fourth quarter, but in overtime he scored 10 points and hit the game-sealing 3. Game 2 was kind of a blowout. It didn't really – it was a wire-to-wire win, as you would say. I think the Pacers' best shots were in games 1 and 3. Game 3, where they were up 18 points with 6 minutes to go in the third, and the Celtics claw back in that one. Jason Tatum makes some great assists down the stretch, especially one incredible behind-the-back pass to Al Horford in the corner. And Drew Holiday not only has the game-winning points, where he gets an and one layup to tie the game and then makes the free throw to put them up 1, but then he also got a steal on Andrew Nembhard and hit the game-sealing free throws from there for the Celtics to win 114-111. Celtics-Pacers is happening tonight It's happening as of this recording in 3 hours, 3.5 hours-ish. So I'm going to try and get this uploaded before the game, presuming that the file doesn't corrupt on me again. When you look at the Pacers series, a lot of people are talking about, oh, Indiana should be up 2-1. Boston is horrible. Boston is blah, 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 blah. I want to address a lot of narratives because I am a Celtics fan, and I want to talk about the Celtics because the national media just does not like them. And that's okay. I'm not trying to, force anyone else to be a Celtics fan. Our fans are pretty obnoxious. I will admit that. We have some fair weather fans in the city of Boston. Not all of them, obviously, but there are some people on the internet that claim to be Boston fans and do not make the general Boston fan look good, right? Even guys like Dave Portnoy, they're not bad people necessarily, although Dave, yeah, kind of. I don't know. I don't need to talk about Dave Portnoy. The point is just that when you look at the Boston Celtics and you look at how the media talks about them, they are never happy with them. The Celtics blow a team out. They're like, oh, they're not being tested. They're not battle tested. And then they come back down 18 and pull out a game that should have otherwise been, wraps. And they're like, well, the Pacers should be up 2-1. The Celtics shouldn't be struggling against Indiana, blah, 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 blah. And it's just so ridiculous because you will not give them credit for battling. This is a team, and all of them said it in the postgame, they're talking about this. We know we can get back into this game. And Joe Mazzulla was saying it too, great coach, by the way, that he was telling the guys, listen, we're going to be tested. We're down double digits. We need to accept that. Now let's go out there and let's claw our way back into this game. Let's still have some fight, and let's go show them who's boss. And they did. They fought, and Indiana hit some crazy shots. Andrew Nembhard was going berserk, as was pretty much the entire team. And the Celtics still found a way to win. That's the story. The story is not Indiana blew it, although Indiana did blow game 1. But the series has been defined by the Celtics being great clutch, being a great clutch team. And if you want to say that the Celtics haven't been tested before that, sure. They have not been tested in the playoffs up to this series. But they're up 3-0 because they earned it. Because they, in the clutch, made huge play after huge play and outperformed the Pacers. I know that the Pacers are missing Halliburton now, but if you want to tell me that the Porzingis injury is inconsequential, I don't know what to tell you. They haven't played with him since Game 4 in the first round. The Celtics have been missing their third best player for 2 rounds of the playoffs now, and you don't even notice. They're just that good of a basketball team. And again, people are talking about, oh, this is the easiest path to the finals ever. It's okay, well, I will give you that it is an easy path to the finals. One, I don't care, because the Celtics have had seriously difficult paths in the finals. Every single playoff run that they have had since drafting Jason Tatum has been difficult, absolutely difficult. And their path to the finals in 2022 involved sweeping KD and Kyrie on the Nets. They had to play them in the first round, KD and Kyrie duo. Second round, you play the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, whatever. They were missing Chris Middleton. That's still a really good basketball team. And then you had to play the 1-seeded Heat, and then you played the Golden State Warriors in the finals. If they won that championship, that would have been one of the hardest playoff runs in history. But for you to say this is the easiest run ever is some serious, serious revisionist history. We're looking at this run, and they're saying, oh, well, it was the easiest path to the finals ever. And last year, Denver played the 8th seed in the first round. Fine, whatever. They played the 4th seed in the second round, sure. And they played the 7th seed and the 8th seed in the conference finals and finals, respectively. They did not play a higher than top 4 seed at all. At all. So, to me, I just look at it and I just have to laugh a little bit. Because again, LeBron had some really easy paths to the finals. That's how he went 10 straight years or 8 straight years or whatever it was. Right, he didn't win 8 straight. He went to 8 straight finals. So he clearly didn't have a ton of competition in the East either. The only reason that his path was easy was because he was a substantially better player than any other player in the conference, and he was on a way better team than the teams around him. And sometimes they won the finals, and sometimes they didn't. His overall record was 4-6. LeBron James is a great basketball player, and it doesn't really matter how easy your path to the finals was because if you win the finals, it doesn't really matter how easy your path was. Like in 2022, Warriors, who played the Celtics after their hard finals run, they played on their way to the finals an injured Nuggets team, no Jamal Murray. They played an injured Grizzlies team, no Ja Morant after game 2, and they played in the conference finals Luka and the Mavs. And I'm not really sure that there was a ton of injuries there, but you're talking about an inexperienced young team, which is similar to the Pacers. But the reason that people don't talk about that run is because Golden State whooped Boston in 6 games. They came back down 2-1, and they whooped them. So if the Celtics win the finals, I don't care about how easy their path was. They beat the team that came out of the West. And if you beat the team that came out of the West, that means you're the best team. Like, whoever wins the finals is the best team in the league. Undisputed. I don't care. And you can say what you want about Denver and Minnesota and how Minnesota was, like, set up to beat Denver, but then Dallas is kind of like a unique challenge. Yes, there are definitely matchups that play into teams' favors. That's why it's hard to repeat as champions, because in any given year, you're playing different teams that are different construction, whatever. My counter to that is that Boston has the most versatile roster on the face of the planet. Like, their team is constructed well enough that they don't really have any real matchup issues. Obviously, Jokic is going to be hard to guard. Luka is going to be hard to guard. But when you look at their team top down, you look at their roster, you look at the defenders they have, the scorers they have, the ball handlers they have so much versatility in what they can throw at you, and they can attack so many different types of mismatches against you. And honestly, if the Boston Celtics do not win the NBA championship, I'm going to have to take a break from basketball. It's going to be a hard one for me to swallow that pill. But you can't really look at this run and say, well, Boston Celtics got lucky, and that's it. Like, yeah, they got lucky. A lot of teams didn't get lucky, right? Jimmy Butler hurt in the play-in game. That sucks. Why were they in the play-in? They were bad all year. So if you expect me to believe that Jimmy Butler alone was going to change the result of the Miami-Boston series, I don't know what to tell you. If you think Donovan Mitchell missing games 4 and 5 would have ultimately changed the result, yes, I understand. Yeah, maybe the series goes 6 instead of 5. Miami takes an extra game, and Cleveland takes an extra game because of Butler and Mitchell. Do the Celtics really lose to either of those teams, depending on whether they're fully healthy or not? No, they don't. So the injuries don't really impact the Celtics at all. I understand that it's playing more games and it's more wear and tear in the postseason. And yeah, the Celtics have some pretty fresh legs. Assuming they win tonight and go to the finals, either way, they're playing on Wednesday. They're at least going to get a week break for the finals. If you think Halliburton changes the team, you'd be right? Like if he plays game 3, it would have been a different game. But if you're trying to tell me that Andrew Nembhard is going to do the exact same thing that he does with Halliburton in the lineup or TJ McConnell, like, these guys are performing well because of the opportunities that are given to them by the star player being out. Did you see Marcus Morris in Game 5 against Boston in Cleveland? He looked like prime friggin' Kevin Durant out there. It was ridiculous. He couldn't miss a single shot. And if you're trying to tell me that he would have gotten those opportunities had Mitchell been in the game and still produced, he would not have. I look at it and I say, yeah, obviously they're a worse team, but if you look at these individual game performances, and you want to tell me the result would have been different, I do not want to hear it. There's no shot that any of those injuries actually change where the Celtics are right now. If the Celtics lose the finals, they're frauds. And if they win, I don't want to hear anything about the path to the finals that they got. If they beat the team that comes out of the West, I don't want to hear it. That's all I have to say about it, and I'm going to move on now. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Timberwolves-Mavericks series. There's a lot going on here. The Timberwolves, just such a confusing team because they closed all these clutch games against Denver and Phoenix, and now they're up against the Mavericks, and the Mavericks are just absolutely torching them in the clutch. Like, everything I thought that Minnesota was going to do, they have not done. And I'm going to throw my predictions up here. Celtics in 5 against the Pacers, and I had Wolves in 6. Boy, was I wrong about that. I do think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to figure out a way to steal a game or two here. I don't know if they're going to force Game 7. I don't know. I mean, coming back 3-0 is difficult Did Boston do it against Miami last year? They forced Game 7. There's zero room for error now. And I think when your back's against the wall, you look at it one game at a time. And yeah, maybe the Wolves can get scrappy and, their back's against the wall and they can go and perform. But 3-0, there's a reason it's never been done before. That's all I'm going to say about that. Second of all, Kyrie Irving is going nuclear right now. The Mavs have the best 2 players in the series. You can't change my mind. Ant has not been what has been advertised, which is not his fault. I'm not going to blame him. I like Anthony Edwards a lot. But he got thrown into this top 5 player conversation that he just doesn't belong in. And he's a 22-year-old. He's just not there yet. And that's okay. He'll be there very, very soon. But he went 6 of 24 in a Game 7, and his team won anyway. People were talking about him like, oh, he's Michael Jordan. Like, he's actually Michael Jordan right now. No, he's not. No, he's not. And I think both teams in the West right now are looking at Boston, and they're like, can we really win this? And I think Minnesota probably matches up better against Boston than Dallas does. I like Dallas a lot. I think they're a great basketball team. It really depends on Kyrie Irving. If he can continue to be the player that he is in this series, they will take care of the Timberwolves. And it really comes down to Anthony Edwards having some of the best performances of his career, and it just kind of looks like he's out of gas. You've got the kind of mentality now that your back's against the wall, you're down 3-0, you've got nothing to lose. So just go out there and play basketball. There's no real pressure. The pressure is always on the team that is closing out the series every single time. The pressure is on who has to win to move on. And if Game 7 happens, then obviously both teams are under pressure, but I shouldn't really entertain the conversation yet about Game 7 as the leads are both 3-0 for both series right now, so I should just get off of that topic. I just wanted to say, I think this is something that people do, like in the media, to young players. I remember they did it to Jason Tatum in his, rookie year even. He was 19, he dunked on LeBron James, brought LeBron to Game 7. Then his next year, he didn't have a great year. People were kind of expecting what he did in his third year out of him in his second season, and it's not really fair because he didn't really have the opportunity. The reason that he broke out in year 3 was because Kyrie left and Horford left and Terry Rozier left too. There was a lot more opportunity for him to be the player on the team. Obviously, they brought in Kemba Walker, but it was very clear that Jason Tatum was going to be the guy. And since then, he's been the number 1 option, clear cut. But the thing is when you anoint a player as next up and you start trying to put him in these conversations that he just doesn't belong in, I don't really feel like that sets that player up for success, because now Anthony Edwards is getting a ton of hate all of a sudden. And I like Anthony Edwards a lot. I made a video on him earlier in the year. I really, really like his game. Underrated aspect of his game is the bank shot. He doesn't go to it a ton, but like midi pull-ups, he'll bank it in. It's just really interesting. You don't really see guys use the bank shot. So that's a cool little aspect of his game that I like a lot. Anyways, obviously Luka Doncic has been the best player in the series, no doubt in my mind. He has played phenomenally. He obviously hit the game winner in Game 2. He made big plays down the stretch in Game 3. I'm trying to remember Game 1 now. I had obviously a reaction after it, but I feel like the Timberwolves were up like a double digits, and then they kind of let the Mavs back in it down the stretch. In the video that I recorded that did not ever go live, I talked about how Anthony Edwards wasn't going to have to be better than Luka Doncic, but he was at least going to have to match Luka. And obviously that's not the easiest thing to do. I will say Luka's numbers haven't been like anything crazy yet. Obviously he's putting up 30 nightly, and I don't want to discredit that, but like that's kind of what you can expect out of Luka at this point. Like, it's not like he's going absolutely crazy. He has another gear that he can get to, is my point. And the thing with Ant is that you kind of hoped that he would do that too. He obviously had some great games against Phoenix, some great games against Denver, but ultimately he did not perform the way through 3 games that you needed him to, especially in the clutch. There's a lot that they have to work on, and I really do believe that they can make this series competitive. If one series is over, it's definitely Pacers-Celtics. There's no way Indiana could possibly win 3 more, even to force a Game 7. I don't know when Boston closes it out. Might be tonight, might be Wednesday on their home floor. that series is over. Indiana had 2 good opportunities to win a game, and they choked them both. Boston stole those games. They deserve credit for that too. But at the end of the day, I trust Minnesota to maybe steal a game or 2 off of Dallas. But Dallas is in a different zone right now, so we'll see. I'm trying to think of what else needs to be said. I guess, honestly, I know it's premature, and I'll probably regret doing a finals preview in case, Minnesota comes back and wins it somehow, or just in the sense that, the finals start on June 6th. I'm recording this on a Monday, and I need the video to go up next weekend too, so I'm going to record another. I don't know, whatever. I'm going to do a finals preview. I know it's a little early. I know the series aren't over yet, but let's be honest, it's probably going to be Dallas-Boston. There's a lot to talk about with that. I'll try and save some stuff for the next episode, but I think in general, there's clear storylines, like just off the bat, that are hilarious, and also there's some storylines that are fun. The first one that I want to talk about is Tatum and Luka. I think Tatum and Luka right now are clear-cut the 2 best players left in the playoffs. I don't think that's even a question. They are both amazing young up-and-coming guys. It's going to be really fun to see one of them win a ring. There's a lot of Luka fans already that are talking about, it doesn't matter if as long as Luka outperforms Jason Tatum. I cannot imagine as a fan ever being okay with my team losing just because my best player is like outperforming the other guy's best player. I want to win the finals. I would rather the Celtics win the finals and Jason Tatum average 20 points than them lose the finals and Tatum average 40. First of all, if they lost the finals and Tatum averaged 40, the rest of the team died, because there's just no way. If Tatum is averaging better numbers than Luka, the Celtics will easily win this series. So all I need to see is Tatum match Luka. Same way I said about Ant. Obviously, Ant couldn't do it. Tatum is a better player than Anthony Edwards. And I think that anyone who doubts him is going to be shown how good of a player Jason Tatum is at basketball. And I know for a fact that Jason Tatum losing that finals in 2022 hurt him more than any of you could ever imagine. That sucked for him. I mean, not only did he not play very well, but when you look at his team and the players that are around him, as long as you get a decent series out of him, like if you get an average like 25, 10, and 5 out of him, which he's pretty much able to sleepwalk to those numbers at this point. But if you can get those numbers out of him, you can definitely feel comfortable in that series. As long as he's not putting up crazy stinkers like he did in his first finals, you're going to be fine. I like Dallas. Dallas has a good defense and a good offense, but I don't see their defense or their offense being better than Boston's. People want to make it like Luka is this clear-cut better player than Jason Tatum. And I know that like people have a reason to say that, and I'm not saying that Luka like isn't better than Jason Tatum, but what I am saying is that Jason Tatum has been there before. First of all, experience is the biggest thing. Second of all, he has a lot more pressure on him. I know he does. Luka can lose the finals and be okay. Like, no one's really going to scrutinize him unless he, like, really has shit dripping down his legs in the playoffs, which he never really has. Like, Luka's a guy that'll always give you good enough numbers that you look at it and you're like, all right, well, somebody else needs to be better. But the Celtics have the better team. And honestly, I know it's a Celtics homer thing to do. I know I have a Jason Tatum jersey behind me, but I can honestly tell you that Jason Tatum is at least at the level of player that Luka is. I'm not going to say that he's better, but if he has a better finals, I am going to be insufferable on Twitter. Jason Tatum might be the most underrated player in the NBA. I looked at people on Twitter the other day, and they were all responding to this tweet that said, Jason Tatum's ceiling and floor as an NBA player. Basically, the concept is, all right, well, Tatum at his best is number 2, and then his floor is 6, right? That's what I would say, personally. You know, you can argue Jokic and Giannis and Luka and Shea and guys like that, but at bare minimum, his floor is 5. There's no player outside of those 4 that is acceptable to be ahead of Jason Tatum in the league. And if you have a top 5 player, you can win a championship. End of story. I don't think that there's been many instances other than the Detroit team that won in the early 2000s that has a player who couldn't be seen as a top 5 player in the game. So if you win with a top 5 player, that player might get pushed into some conversations that they don't belong in. Jason Tatum is going to get put into best player in the world conversations if he outperforms Luka in the finals, which honestly he would deserve. But all of this is hypothetical fanfic, so I'm not going to even address that. But I want it to be very clear that Jason Tatum is on Luka Doncic's level. I don't think he's past him, but if you're going to look at me in my eyes and try and lie to me and say that Jason Tatum couldn't match Luka's output in the finals, I don't know what to tell you. Another fun storyline in this series is that obviously Kyrie Irving used to play for the Celtics and Kristaps Porzingis used to play for the Mavericks, and both fan bases, probably not as much now, but when those players were on that team, they really did not like them. Like in Kyrie's last year in Boston, he threw the teammates under the bus all the time. He said, I'm going to re-sign here. And then he goes and joins up with KD and DeAndre Jordan. Do we remember the DeAndre Jordan just like signed? It was like this weird thing of Kyrie, and KD, and also DeAndre Jordan. And then Claxton was kind of just like way better than him. And here we are, but that was just a funny thing. Anyway, the thing is that after Kyrie kind of just shit his pants, it was against Milwaukee. They won game 1. They had just swept Indiana in round 1. And so they're on 5-game win streak in the playoffs, and then they just lose 4 straight to Milwaukee. All of the games are like either blowouts or collapses, and the team just didn't have it. And that sucks. Like that really, really sucked. And Kyrie just did not play well. He didn't have enough effort on transition. He wasn't hustling. Obviously didn't shoot efficiently. He had like that game where he was like, you're never going to see another 8 for 22 again. And then it was like 7 of 22. And it is what it is, man. I, as a Boston Celtics fan, am not mad at Kyrie anymore. It's the same way that Ray Allen kind of feels, like he had some great moments for you. Obviously, at least Ray Allen helped, bring you a championship, but whatever, man. It's in the past. It's just a fun little storyline for me because Kyrie has sucked against Boston since they won in 5. And obviously when they won in 5, they had the big 3, Harden, Kyrie, and KD, and Boston did not have Jaylen Brown. And it was a really, really bad lineup. Jason Tatum still found a way to steal a game, by the way. He averaged 30 points a game over that series. He had a 50-point game, a 40-point game, a 30-point game, a 20-point game, and then like a 12-point game where he got poked in the eye. I think that was game 1 at the end, but he had a really bad game 1. Anyways, the point is that I'm ready to bury the hatchet, and it's water under the bridge. Kyrie has been through a lot since he's been in Boston, and genuinely he looks like he is matured as a person, actually matured though. Like he came to Boston and he wasn't mature. He went to Brooklyn and he wasn't mature. The whole time he was pretending that he was mature, but now finally in Dallas, it feels like he's grown up a lot. Him and Luka have a really fun kind of dynamic. I like the way that they play off of each other. I'll probably go back to that later. But as for KP, it was really just he didn't really mesh well with Luka. And KP himself said on the JJ Redick podcast earlier in the year that he had a lot of maturing that he needed to do and that he did while he was in Boston. And a lot of it is about sacrifice. A lot of it is about knowing your role, playing your role, buying into your role. Because obviously, KP was in New York. He was under the bright lights. He was with Melo, and he obviously had some injuries, but he was the guy. Like, they really were talking about him like he was going to be like the next Knicks legend at points. And again, stupid media. Obviously, that never happened. It didn't really have a chance of happening, but he had the nickname the Unicorn for a reason, and he was a great basketball player for them. Then he obviously gets traded to Dallas. Dallas underperforms. Luka just is too ball dominant for KP. That's not even true, though. It's just about the way that KP was used. It's not Luka's fault. Like, it's the coaching. The coaches said, KP, go sit in the corner. And yeah, KP probably should have been in the pick and roll with Luka, like, all the time. I don't really remember what their roster looked like at that point. I know that they had Jalen Brunson on the team, who is obviously now a baller in New York, and he's getting actually the same kind of Kristaps treatment of the overhype and whatever. So it's just, Knicks people, stop. Please stop it. Just for the rest of the offseason. Please. Thank you very much. I want to talk about the funnier storylines. These are unserious, but just things that made me laugh. Like I was seeing them on Twitter and whatever. The first one is that Grant Williams was on both of these teams last year and this year, and they both let him go. The Mavericks traded him to Charlotte to get PJ Washington, who has been great for them, by the way. Once his 3-ball goes in, like he's been kind of rough in the conference finals so far, but when he hits that 3-ball, Mavs are unstoppable. So you're going to have to prepare for that. Back to the Grant Williams thing. It's just very funny that Grant Williams was on both of these teams, and they make the finals both without him. Obviously, he is a good contributor. He's a fun little guy, but he's obviously not a franchise cornerstone. He's one of those role players that definitely it gets under some people's skin. I think it's fair to say that in Dallas, he just wasn't a great fit. I do think he's going to be a great leader in Charlotte. I don't think anyone on the Celtics really minded him. People want to talk about, he was like a locker room cancer. And it's like, okay, let's chill out with that. He's not a cancer, but he's just a little annoying guy, just a little annoying fella. So with that said, I don't hate Grant Williams, but I obviously don't miss him on my basketball team. That is what it is. I wish him the best in his career. It's just kind of funny that both teams who either let go of Grant Williams or purposefully got rid of Grant Williams are now going to meet in the finals. And along with that, another thing, I don't know if we remember Jay Crowder, also known as Bossman99. Some of you will know what that is. If you didn't, it's his Twitter username. He is kind of the most hilarious player at the same time as who the hell gets traded for 5 second-round picks? That's such a bizarre, what value does that even mean? Milwaukee gave up 5 seconds for him? I don't know. I just thought that was funny. Pretty sure that the Celtics got Jay in the Rajon Rondo trade. I just remember the funniest thing that I remember about Jay Crowder on the Celtics was when Gordon Hayward came to town, people in the Boston Garden were chanting for Hayward, come to Boston or something like that. I don't remember. It was just funny because Jay Crowder was pissed. He was well, that's stupid. I don't want him here because obviously they play the same position, and Jay would definitely have been replaced. I'm pretty sure they just let him go in free agency that year. Maybe they traded him. I don't remember. Another thing, too, I wanted to get back to two things. One, we don't know what Porzingis' injury status is. He has still yet to play a game since Game 4 in the first round. I think he'll be good for June 6th. I really do. I think they're just kind of being cautious with him. His health is really going to be a determining factor against Dallas because you need that rim protection. Obviously, Al Horford and Kristaps are both going to get cooked in the pick and roll, but you can probably switch off that and have Tatum cover the drop. I don't know if Tatum is a great rim protector, but he could at least stay with the center and force, Luka or Kyrie or whoever to take a tougher shot when they're being guarded by somebody else. The point is just that I like the odds of the Celtics a lot better if Kristaps Porzingis is playing. No duh, but it's just worth mentioning anyway. And the other thought that I have is that I wanted to come back to was just how Luka and Kyrie play off of each other. I think they do a really, really good job at recognizing when one of them needs to take over. And the team is constructed in a way that it's very obvious that Kyrie or Luka are going to have the ball. Obviously, you have guys like Jaden Hardy or even Dante Exum that can handle the ball, but a majority of the team knows, if either Luka or Kyrie are on the floor, one of them is going to have the ball in their hands. And I think that simplifies things for a lot of the Mavericks players. PJ is just going to set screens, shoot, cut, whatever, defend. And that's what those guys' roles are. And Kyrie and Luka have the task of, playing good defense, which, by the way, Kyrie's played some really, really good defense. He's hustled. He's a good defensive player, and people don't give him credit for that. And Luka has also made some very high-effort plays. He drew a charge on Ant in Game 3. Also, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't said this until now. Did Luka just do Anthony Edwards like he did Devin Booker? That's crazy. He walked up to him and put his hands on his knees. And, I don't think he smiled at him, but he was doing him how Ant's character in Hustle did Bo Cruz. I don't know if everybody's seen the movie. It's a very good movie. Oh, I love the jokes too about how they didn't give Anthony Edwards lines and just improvised all of it, because he seriously is his character. That character is just straight up who Anthony Edwards is, and I think that's very funny. Back to the Luka thing, just funny to me how Anthony Edwards is now basically like gonna get put back into Booker conversations. Booker, I remember, had just went to the finals and lost, and then obviously they were up 3-2. Luka goes, yeah, everybody tough when they're up, and then they win not only game 6, but they win game 7 by like 40. They just blow the Suns out of the stadium on their home floor, by the way. And I just remember, obviously, Luka at the free throw line just kind of like smiling at Devin Booker, like, I just got your ass, buddy. And for him to do that to Anthony Edwards is very funny, mainly because when Luka did that, he was passing. I mean, he was already past Devin Booker, but like there was now no argument about who was the better player. And not that people thought Luka was like worse than Anthony Edwards. If anyone said that, they need to be tied to a chair and forced to watch Luka highlights, because I know Anthony Edwards, he's an explosive player. But when you look at Luka, I mean, that's tactical. Like, people want to look at him and say, oh, he's slow. He's not slow. Mikal Bridges talked about it with Taylor Rooks on her podcast. But, like, Luka's slow on purpose. Like, he got gears. So he plays in one gear, and then he goes slow to fast to slow to fast. Like, he's just manipulating the speed of the game to, A, conserve energy, and B, make an harder to predict offensive game. And I think that he's a really, really good basketball player. Enough said, right? Like, he is definitely a top 3 player in the world. And it's worth noting that, he had been working through an injury and an illness throughout the playoffs. It seems like he's healthy now, but, the bloody knees was like, oof, yikes. And he's still putting up numbers. So it's just funny to me now. It's like Luka runs the West. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that we're going to see another Jokic ring. It's possible. When Minnesota and Denver were playing in that game 7 and Rudy hit that like turnaround shot and everyone's like, oh my God, the Nuggets are so unlucky. Like, look at all these shots they're hitting. It's just funny. Like, that was the perfect karma for Nuggets fans, because we remember them last year. Those shots they hit on the Lakers, I mean, those crazy step back, turnaround, crazy threes that they were hitting, that was ridiculous. So it was funny to see that shot making go back against them. Okay, I don't think the mic's picking that up. My neighbors are outside talking. It's just funny. Really nice people. Shout out my neighbors. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. No, I was talking about the shot making of Rudy Gobert, about Denver getting a taste of their own medicine. I feel like I lost all my momentum with that. I don't really have any angles to go at from this. At the end of the day, it's been a really interesting NBA playoffs. Not anything like crazy. It's been a fun playoffs, though. There have been some pretty great moments. It sucks that it's kind of coming to an end, but I will say this NBA Finals is stacking up to be one of the best NBA Finals in like recent memory. I mean, Dallas Celtics has plenty of storylines. We talked through them. Obviously, for the casual viewer, those storylines are great, but 2 really great players, 2 young and up-and-coming stars in Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic. They've both got their respective supporting casts that should be mentioned as well. Guys like Jaylen Brown and Kyrie Irving and Drew Holiday, Derek White, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington. They've got squads, right? Like, they just do. And it's just going to be an interesting finals, assuming that neither team blows a 3-0 lead. But, that's really all I got today. Sorry that I haven't uploaded in forever. I'm going to go work and edit this right now. I guess I'll see you probably next Saturday, assuming I don't have any other exporting issues. But I will see you then. Take care.